everybody, Dave here. We're in the new to you speakers Southern Workshop, and I was scouring a local thrift shop the way I do a couple weeks ago, and I saw these and I thought the price was a little too high. I then started to do a little research on them, and I thought, well, yeah, it's close to my frugal taste, so let me go back a week later, and I did, and they were marked down from a borderline price to a really, really good price. Some of you may recognize them just by their appearance. I've got the grill off. They had this nameplate on them, Optimus. Now, that was a Radio Shack brand back in the 90s and into 2000. But these are fairly unique as tower speakers go, and there's quite a story behind them. So this is the Radio Shack Optimus Pro LX-10, and if you know anything about Optimus speakers or speaker technology, there's a very interesting tweeter design that was part of this speaker, and that's what the focus of this video is going to be. As far as repair and service work that I have to do, I already stripped off the grill cloth. They were quite pilled, and so I just need to recover the front grills. And other than that, they're in perfect condition, and they sound amazing. And we'll talk about why they sound amazing. They're lacking a little bit of bass. We've got two 7-inch drivers for the woofer and mid-range. That pumps out quite a bit of volume, but it doesn't go really low. Ported, but the magic's up here on the tweeter. So let's take a couple minutes and dig into that, and then we'll go into the technology behind this tweeter. As far as the repair video, it's really recovering a speaker grill, so not much to see here. But we'll spend most of our time in this video on the Linaeum tweeter, and that has quite a history to it. All right, the first thing you'll notice when we take a look at this speaker, I kind of intentionally didn't show you the upper portion where the tweeter is housed. And you'll see that there's actually a second grill up here. And once we take that grill off, let's pop that off. Here you see where the magic is. I've seen different versions in photos of this tweeter. Some of them are marked Linaeum here, which is the company that invented this tweeter technology. It's called in this case, it's called a dipole tweeter. It's got a flexible membrane. There's that flexible membrane. And there's kind of a pair of membranes in the front that end up radiating in this direction traditionally. But interestingly enough, around the backside, sorry, the lighting's not so great back here, but we also have flexible membrane on the backside. And the point is, if you think about this from a top view, here's the top view, this speaker, when the tweeter is operating with the AC signal, is radiating frequency based on the frequency, and it's radiating off this lobe of the mylar film, off this lobe, and this lobe, because the flexible mylar film is moving in an AC direction in this orientation. And we're going to dig into how this actually works. It's called a dipole tweeter. So you actually get a sound field that is essentially 360 degrees. Typically we have a driver. That driver radiates outwards and inwards. And we take advantage as listeners of the sound waves that are produced, and they're focused in this direction of the cone. Well, there's no cone here. This flexible membrane, one here, and then again on the back side, these are actually moving with a transduced pressure wave, and we'll talk about how that wave is formed based on how the magnet and the coil is wound on this. So the highs are outstanding on this tweeter, and if you take a look at all the reviews that came out when this speaker was produced and in its prime, they really do rave about how it does operate. So that's the reason that it comes with this grill that is acoustically transparent, both on the top, you can kind of see through it there, both on the top, the front, the back, the sides, because it's radiating in a 360-degree orientation. So speaker placement is obviously key for these, where you put them in your room, and the manual has recommendations on how to take advantage of that. So let's shift gears a little bit and take a look at the history of this tweeter. And we'll do that on the computer. So if you were in the market for some speakers in 1997, one of the places you might consider to go would have been Radio Shack, of course. And if you didn't have a Radio Shack near you, you would have the catalog. And interestingly enough, you can find all the Radio Shack catalogs online. In 1997, you would have, on page 92 of their 280-page catalog, you would have found the Optimus Pro bookshelf speaker, acclaimed by audio experts. Now that happened to be a single driver with the Linaeum tweeter on it. They then also created a ported bookshelf version. Those were $199 each. The bookshelf without the port were $149 each. But if you wanted to go top end, and this was the highest end speaker that Radio Shack sold at the time, you would go with the Tower, which had the double drivers here with the Linaeum tweeter for $249 each. And you can see they're really touting the sound quality that was being reported by many audiophile entities back at that time. There was a test report done, in this case, this was Stereo Review in April 1997. They did a complete write-up and review of the Optimus Pro LX-10 speaker. Here you can read about it. 30 pounds a piece, consistent with what we saw in the catalog, $250. And as you can imagine, they talk about how much they enjoyed the high end. Not as great on the low end, but and they also talk about how important it is to make sure you've got speaker placement figured out correctly. So that was kind of interesting. And there they are from that page. I wanted to understand a little bit better, so the next thing I found was this article about Linaeum. This comes from the Audio Tools website. It talks about defunct audio companies, which is always interesting. There's been a lot of defunct audio companies over time, and here they talk about Linaeum. Being located in Portland, Oregon, there were really two guys behind this company, Paul Paddock and Ben Stutz. Now, it turns out that Paul Paddock is the one who actually has the patent. Ben Stutz appears to be his business partner. And back at that time, they were called, this is 1983, Intensity Inc. You'll see in the first paragraph here, they talk about Intensity Inc. Then they changed the name of the company to Floating Membranes. That makes sense based on the technology, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. And I found it was interesting here. They also had a ligature of Linaeum with the joined A and E, and then they finally separated it in the unjoined A and E. That's kind of interesting.
And it talks about a little bit about how the transducer and how it works, and how they then made a sales agreement with Radio Shack, and then the patent was and the technology was bought and sold to a couple companies over time, and by now the patent has expired, and so if you want to use this technology, you can. Next, let's take a look at the patent. If you're not familiar, one of the things you can do is go to Google, and Google has a very good patent search. I typed in Paul Paddock, and he has several patents. US 4584439A is the patent for the membrane tweeter speaker, and it talks about all the events here. And that it's now expired back in, I'm not sure exactly, well, it would have been 17 years after 1983. So it would have been in 2000, it would have expired. It looks like maybe they renewed it a little bit after that. So you can read down through this whole thing and start to get an idea how it works, but you won't be totally. And this patent has been cited many times over the years. So it was really a fundamental patent in audio, in the audio world. So here is the actual PDF of the patent from Paul Paddock, signed to Floating Membranes at the time this was issued in 1986. It was filed in 83, so it took them 3 years to get it through. Not unusual. And then it starts getting into the diagrams, and we're going to spend most of the time here on figure 4 and figure 5 on how this works. So figure 4 is a top view. The four curved surfaces are the membrane. So there's actually 2 membranes, and the membrane on the left goes from the upper left corner of figure 4 down through the center point, and it's attached at that upper left corner, and it's attached at the lower left corner. And that whole membrane can float other than those 2 attached points. And the same is true for the membrane on the right. It's attached at the upper right corner, it's attached at the lower right corner, and the whole rest of the membrane can float. The figure 5 on the right is an exploded view of that center section of figure 4, where the magnetic poles are shown much more clearly. So you have the magnet on the left with a north pole and a south pole. You have the magnet on the right with a south pole and a north pole. And you see the magnetic field lines are shown as the arrows in figure 5, going from left to right, north to south on the upper side, and then going from right to left on the lower side. How this system is generating the acoustic wave that we hear, the sound wave that we hear, is quite interesting. So just like any other speaker, there is a wound coil. Now the wound coil is shown by the plus. If you look at figure 5 on the right side here, you can see the plus sign. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pluses right smack in the middle between the north and south poles of the upper section. Sandwiched between the 2 mylar strips are wires, and that's wound in a coil-like fashion. So we have positive on the top and negative on the bottom, and that's shown there in this case. So that membrane, the 2 membranes are sandwiched together, essentially glued to the voice coil, which is multiple windings, and that receives the AC signal from your amplifier. What then happens is, depending on the magnitude and the frequency of that AC signal from your amplifier, it's actually going to cause a pressure wave to be formed by the mylar pair. And if you look at figure, actually you could look at the bottom of figure 4 or the bottom of figure 5, you'll see arrow 84. Arrow 84 indicates the direction of movement that would happen. So here we see those two bottom wings, the two 90-degree arcs, quarter arcs of the two Mylar strips are moving down in the left picture. So if those two are moving down, then the two Mylar sections in the upper portion are also moving down. So this is where the dipole effect comes into play. Because the left side is fixed at the top and fixed at the bottom, and the right side is fixed at the top and fixed at the bottom, if the center moves down, then both of those arcs are going to move down of all four lobes. Let's call them lobes. All four lobes are going to move down. And then if you look at figure 4, lower picture, you'll see points, you'll see multiple lines associated with the Mylar film, line 86 and 88. That's essentially showing you the two positions that the Mylar film could be in. So you can see it's actually moving. In 86, it's creating a pressure wave downward. In 88, it's creating a pressure wave upward. So the location of 86 would be consistent with the arrow in 84. So fascinating. So this thing is just amazing. I wasn't 100% sure that I understood it until I found another drawing, and I found this on Stereophile. Here's a simplified version. This only shows half of the dipole. Instead of a 360-degree system, this would be a 180-degree system because it's only got one Mylar strip affixed at the north end and the south end, and then the coils in the middle. But what you see here is, here it's showing the concept of the pressure wave being formed. So that wave is traveling along the Mylar and then it relaxes, right? So once the coil makes a movement, because the Mylar is flexible, the whole thing doesn't move all at once. It's because it's not a rigid body, it's a flexible body. So a wave is formed, and this is how it works. That wave then migrates along the entire length of the Mylar, following the arrows as shown. Now, you could imagine if this were a double dipole, meaning there was another Mylar film attached on the bottom side of this image, which is not shown, that would be doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction, right? It would be also creating a pressure wave that would be something you could sound. So for one system, all they have to do is add an extra strip of Mylar. Instead of having the strip just on the upper portion, they can add the strip on the lower portion, and you basically can take advantage of the 360-degree nature of this. So absolutely amazing. Really enjoyed understanding how this worked, and listening to them is equally amazing. I wish you could do that. But if you ever have a chance to grab a pair of these, please consider doing it. I see them, looks like the price range, I see them anywhere from online $100 up to a couple $100. So very interesting speaker, and hope you enjoyed my partial explanation as to how it works. It's just such a different concept in how a speaker operates, instead of the traditional cone and voice coil that we're all more familiar with.
All right, we're back from our little tutorial explanation. Hopefully we didn't go too deep on that for you. I thought it was worth spending a little time on it because it's so different, right? So here they are again, and I'll do the recovering later today. Make sure we get the grills taken care of and bring these back to pristine condition. I'm having second thoughts about selling them, but they sound so good. But I'm sure there's some aficionados out there who would really enjoy to have a pair of these. So I'll probably send them along. But there it is, you know, that Linaeum dipole tweeter it's amazing. I guess I haven't thought about the economics of it. You know, he talks in the patent about how cost effective it is, and how more environmentally stable it is. Typically, you know, cones were made of paper back then, and so they could be damaged. These are Mylar, which obviously is an invention to itself, but I can see how the environmentally stable portion does apply. Yeah, they've got the cones on the base mid-range drivers are plastic. So obviously, a lot of drivers still use paper cones, but back in the day, that was another marketing point, and I'm sure it worked. So quite a few pairs of these. So there you have it, the Optimus Pro LX-10. As I said, if you ever see a pair of these around, try to get a listen to them, and I think you'll also be impressed by the sound. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Like the video and subscribe to New to You Speakers, and we'll have more coming up for you in future videos. And as always, we try to do a little slant on history and the traditions behind our audio technologies, and this one has an interesting story to it. That's why we included it. Thanks a lot. Bye.